A very good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the Monday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Hope everybody has enjoyed their weekend, and of course, we are well underway of a new work week. But before we get into the video, please like, share with your friends and family, and hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate the fact that the numbers continue to rise in terms of the subscriptions. I'm now at the well over 4,500 subscriptions, and you know, at this time of the year to see it continuing to rise is just very impressive for myself. Very, grateful for your support and your continued interest in the channel. As you know, I continue to try and share some fresh content with you pretty much on a daily basis to keep things interesting, to keep things avoid any kind of repetitive nature of talking about the same thing day in and day out. I'm always trying to mix things up to keep it fresh, to keep it interesting. And I think I must be doing something right to continue to see the subscriptions rising, especially at this time of the year. Historically, it has been a quieter time of the year, but to keep the views going and the subscriptions continuing to rise, I'm very grateful to you for your support. So I just wanted to kind of say that before I started today's video. Also, a couple of things that I missed out on the global weather report yesterday. Some interesting stories that have been happening in recent days around the world that I just wanted to kind of share with you before we move on to a new week, and of course a new global weather report at the end of this week. Of course, every Sunday I do a look at what the weather has been doing around the world, what extremes we've been experiencing, looking at a little bit of climate stuff as well, El Nino, sea surface temperatures and whatnot. So yeah, I hope you're enjoying the global weather report each and every Sunday. Always get frustrated because I always miss something that I think it's just I'm trying to ram so much stuff into that 15-minute period, and I always manage to miss. So this actually was the scene in parts of Pakistan. Remember I said to you in yesterday's video about some record low temperatures for the time of the year in parts of Pakistan into the high teens for overnight lows. Very cool compared to what you would expect at this time of the year at this part of the world, of course. Some significant amounts of rainfall expected, in the coming days in parts of Pakistan, northwest India. I think we do have a system that has developed over the Arabian Sea, so we need to watch that. That's something that I may speak about next Sunday in the 45th edition of the weather report. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go through the week. But this, like I say, is the scene with massive hailstones. Look at the size of that. So remarkable scenes, like I said, unusual cool, some very heavy rainfall, but very significant amounts of hail that has fallen in this region of the world during the last week or so. This was off disaster news. Also in Australia, I do know that I have got a few folk that watch from a couple of places in Australia. I think Sydney being one of them. I do appreciate your tuning in to the videos as well. I do know that a lot of the content is kind of Europe biased, but of course the global weather and climate report, I always try and add in all areas of the world to keep everybody kind of up to date with what's going on in other parts of the planet. Of course, it's a big place, isn't it? So yeah, lots of interesting things going on. But parts of Sydney and Brisbane have experienced. This is an article actually dating back to the end of May. So this is a little bit. We're having to backtrack a little bit, and we have actually seen quite an increase in temperatures. During June so far. Of course, this is the beginning of winter now, meteorological winter actually in Australia, of course. But yeah, very cool temperatures for May, with Australia's east coast having felt an exceptionally cold final month of autumn. The minimum temperature at Amberley, southwest of Brisbane, fell to 5.2 Celsius before 9 a.m. yesterday. So this, I think, is the 30th of May, marking the lowest minimum May temperature in records dating back to 1942, according to Weather Zone. The average May temperature in the area is 10 degrees Celsius. So quite impressive stuff, of course, here. Similarly, the average temperature at Brisbane Airport this month was 10.6, which is also the coldest average recorded in data dating back to 1950. In Sydney, the average minimum temperature at the Observatory Hill up to 9 a.m. yesterday, being the 30th of May, I believe, was 10 degrees, which is 1.6 below the average and the city's lowest May minimum average since 1957. Also, the city's western suburbs were even colder, with Richmond's airport average monthly minimum of 4.4, also the lowest for May since 1957, according to Weather Zone. So interesting cold. Remember, I did kind of point out the fact that Australia had a very chilly May overall. Also, of course, the beginning of meteorological summer in Europe, in the northern hemisphere, of course. And this is a tweet by Julius Subovic. Our online station at Slovak Paradise National Park, which is in eastern Slovakia, dropped a temperature of minus 8.3 Celsius this morning. This is going back a few days, of course, as well. And while another station recorded minus 9.5 Celsius. Amazing level of cold in this region of the world for early June. And according to Julius, it's to do with the limestone, the clear skies, light winds, but also the limestone. I think attracts the cold to drain within this region. This is obviously a low-lying area surrounded by kind of hills, and of course the cold air collects. This is probably a kind of typical frost hollow in eastern Slovakia, if I'm right in saying that. And this actually thrashes our national record low in June of -5. Yeah, it blows it out of the water, doesn't it? So very impressive chill here in this region of the world. Our good friend Shryan Bruin in Dublin showed this tweet just not that long ago, actually, of the 500 millibar height anomaly for the month of May. And of course, we've had this very strong, persistent, incredible persistence of high pressure anchored just to the west of the British Isles and Ireland. Of course, the position of that high has led to quite a lot of increase in marine influence. So winds coming off the North Sea, keeping things rather cool, cloudy down that eastern flank of the British Isles. Ireland, I think, has had its fair share of cloud and fog and whatnot. But the warmest temperatures anywhere in the UK and Ireland has really been confined in recent days to the western side of Ireland. Temperatures in the mid-20s. I do know the west coast of Wales has had 25 degrees a few occasions in the last few days. And of course, that negative underneath has led to some very, very unsettled conditions across the southern half of Europe, as well as the Mediterranean basin. And we'll look at the Canaries in just a second. If you happen to be on holiday down in Fuerteventura, Tenerife, Gran Canaria, Lanzarote, pretty miserable conditions actually over the next 24 to 48 hours, thanks to an area of low pressure. An unusual setup. I think that might be down to the phase 8 into 1 of the Manjulian oscillation, the position of that strong stone, that blocking area of high pressure to the north, leading to a more suppressed jet stream, unusually strong as well, and then usually far south at this time of the year. You don't expect to see weather systems, rain-making weather systems, down in the latitude of northern Africa at this time of the year. But some weird and wacky stuff going on at the moment. There's no question about that. And we'll look at the Canaries in just a second. Another place that I meant to mention was Tokyo, the capital of Japan, of course, recording 10.5 inches of rainfall between Thursday last week and Saturday. 2 dead, 35 injured due to heavy floods in parts of Tokyo and parts of Japan. This may be a consequence, I think, of Typhoon Mawar. And I think it might be the reason why we're seeing this situation developing here. Let's get back actually to what's going on in the Canary Islands. So there's actually Storm Oscar has been named by the Spanish Met Service, the AE Met. And we have an interesting and rather unusual setup at the moment. This is a tweet by our friends at the Met Office showing this Storm Oscar that is a fairly deep area of low pressure and it's actually the eastern flank of that. It's going to be kind of pulling a lot of moisture up from the south, right the way across the Canary Islands, bringing a spell of fairly brisk winds. 50, 60 mile an hour winds is possible in exposure. Heavy rainfall, flooding rainfall, flash floods is possible as well with this type of scenario. Highly unusual to see that for the beginning of meteorological summer. You would typically expect to see a strong subtropical area of high pressure that is dominating this region. Clear skies, temperatures well into the 20s, even close to 30 degrees at this time of the year. Nice and warm by night time as well. Not the case over the course of tonight and tomorrow down in this region of the world. Now, this area of low pressure has great significance to our weather as we progress through this work week. The reason being is that we continue to see this big, strong area of high pressure that has been dominating in recent times. We'll go back and look actually at the stratoqueue that we've got draped across the British Isles at the moment. It's not turned sunny all day here in Ross-shire, quite exposed here to that wind coming in off the North Sea through the Souters and up through the Cromarty Firth. You tend to have that cool, fresh marine influence all the way into the village here of Eventon. You've got Allness, you've got Invergordon. Temperatures have not been that warm in recent days, thanks to that onshore wind coming in, but also the lack of burn off during the course of the day. So you can see here, this was captured by, it's actually the BBC, in fact, and you can see here the amount, the extent, the westward extent of that stratocumulus cloud that has engulfed most of the UK during the early portion of this morning. That tends to, as the sun then increases in strength overhead, you tend to see that cloud deck kind of peel back to the coast. In areas it hasn't done so, and it's remained very chilly, 13, 14 degrees at best, even during the afternoon. Rather fresh, to say the least, for this time of the year. But that has been the case ongoing over the last couple of weeks, really, actually, with the burn back, with the increase in sun. The further west you go, whether it be Glasgow, whether it be Carlisle, Blackpool, Aberystwyth, Porthmadog on the west coast of Wales, temperatures have been responding very nicely indeed in this region of the world where you've had more in the way of sunshine for longest. But anyway, this area of low pressure down across the southwest, or the far southwest of the continent, what we're going to see is this is going to start to slowly advance northwards. And what it's going to do is it's going to weaken that cap that's been so prevalent over the UK in recent days and allow the development of showers and thunderstorms. It's going to allow that trigger and, of course, increase the lapse rate. That is the level of upward motion through the column, and the rate at which the air rises is going to develop these showers and thunderstorms. Now, the area of low pressure, according to the GFS, does not bodily move over the UK, but it weakens the cap enough that we start to see the showers and storms developing during the second half of this upcoming week and through the upcoming weekend. And then I think we do have a bit of a subtle change. Now, all the while, as this area of low pressure lifts north, it's also going to pull warmer air from the Mediterranean up into the UK, so we turn more unsettled, but we also increase both the temperature and the humidity level over the British Isles as we go through the period here. So looking at the 850 temperature, of course, this is a nice measure of the air mass that we're dealing with. And you can see here, if we go back to the current setup, nothing overly warm over the UK at the moment here, kind of homegrown warmth, if you will. But as you can see here, right at the very bottom left-hand corner of the chart, you've got that area of low pressure bringing all sorts of messy conditions to the Canaries. But then we start to see that warm air lifting up through Iberia, up through France, and then we start to see that warmer air getting drawn around that circulation and up into the British Isles. Now, how warm we get remains to be seen. Depends on sunshine and whatnot, but we could even get into the high 20s, approaching 30 Celsius with this setup. We'll look at the numbers over the next couple of days with regards to how warm it gets. I think I've spoken long enough, so I appreciate you watching as always. Do like, share, and subscribe as always, and I'll see you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Enjoy the rest of your Monday